is yours in some seconds.
Oh, we're ahead of time.
Exactly. A big welcome to Virtual Happy Hour 3.0. The global Virtual Happy Hour session goes in the next stage. Today we are going to learn many good things from Down Under, one of my favorite countries, with one of my favorite airlines in the world, with one of my favorite sports of the world. And Jeremy, the stage is yours. Big welcome to Virtual Happy Hour 3.0 about New Zealand.
Perfect, and thank you. And I'm just getting a reminder to say that Virtual Happy Hour 3.0 is just starting now. So kia ora. Daniel maybe foolishly asked me to do a presentation on New Zealand. Firstly, I'd like to say, Daniel, thank you so much. Not actually just for asking me to present here, but actually for making me take the time to go back and review. I've been out of New Zealand for quite some time, although I still visit there reasonably often, except right now, unfortunately. And it's been a pleasure actually just going through and doing some research. So hope some people get something out of this, but if not, I certainly did. So, you know, we're known as a little country way down south. We're known as Kiwis. The local name for New Zealand is Aotearoa, which is literally translated to land of the long white cloud. Australia and New Zealand, sometimes referred to as the Antipodes, which basically means opposite side from Britain and Ireland. We're a land down under, as Daniel said, but we're a land down under. So, and recently we've been sort of pretty famous about being everyone's, country that they're trying to search out to organise a travel bubble. Obviously, COVID is sort of under control in New Zealand, so a lot of countries are trying to arrange their first international destinations to be New Zealand. And by the way, there's not many of us, and there's quite a bit of land, so I think we actually invented social distancing. We're ahead of our time.
No, but that's for me something important. It's not social distance, because socially we still connected as physical distance.
True.
And
Yes.
and why do you allow the Brits and the Irish to call you and Australia the Antipodes? Shouldn't you flip it around?
Well, I mean, a lot of, basically, most of our descendants are from that area anyway. So, British sent their convicts to Australia, and they sent their nice people to New Zealand. So that's pretty much how the Europeans arrived down under.
Okay.
Map in New Zealand. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, sorry for being late.
No problem. So I've got a world map there, New Zealand down the bottom right. I mention it because not all world maps have New Zealand on it. There's our flag. It's like Australians, but a little bit less. It has 2 less stars than Australia's.
Wasn't there a discussion about a new flag?
Yeah, there was. We had some really nice flags. We were going to differentiate ourselves from Australia and, the Commonwealth, but in the end, I think that too many people just felt it was too much of a step away from tradition. Even though, our tradition is not that old, we're pretty new in terms of, history and stuff like that. New Zealand was settled approximately 700 years ago by Polynesian people. It's thought that they probably came over in a canoe from Hawaii, and then they developed the Maori culture. From the European side, it was discovered by Abel Tasman in 1642. So it's, relatively new. There's our national bird, kiwi. It's a native flightless nocturnal bird. It has a long beak and is used to forage for bugs and worms. So Daniel has mentioned COVID. Currently, there's 24 active cases of COVID. We have had 0 COVID cases in the past, and the country was celebrating. These 24 cases are all basically in managed isolation. So we still have people returning to New Zealand. New Zealanders are allowed to return back to New Zealand, and when they do, they have to quarantine for 14 days. So these cases of active COVID cases are all in managed isolation facilities, which are hotels.
So who pays for that?
Currently, the New Zealand government does, but they're looking to make a law change. They have to make a law change because it's I guess, in the sort of constitution that it's your right to return home. So, but they're looking at making a law change, and it will be paid. You'll have to pay for it. So it costs around $4,000 for the stay for 14 days, and they're looking at charging each person $3,000.
But it's somehow also in support for the local hotel business, isn't it? If the people are always staying in the hotel, so.
It is, but it's only certain hotels are used. So actually, the last couple of weeks, they've actually stopped taking bookings for flights to New Zealand, or reducing the flight bookings to New Zealand, because they haven't got enough facilities. So it's only certain facilities, some that they can sort of secure off. They have security manning so that people don't run away, and they also like to have an area where the people can actually go for exercise. So I think you can request sort of like an exercise slot once a day with a staff member from the hotel.
But isn't the tourist industry heavily hit now? I mean, you have a lot of tourists coming to New Zealand actually year on year, and now it's coming.
There's none. It's stopped. What they're trying to do is promote internal tourism. So basically, rather than a lot of New Zealanders go to Australia every year for a holiday, or Bali, or the Pacific Islands. They're trying to tell them to, go on a holiday within the country. But yeah, it's having a huge impact on all the tourist, the tourist activities and all the tourism, the businesses that rely on tourism. There's a lot of businesses that are folding up. Silver fern. So this is, you see the green fern in the background. That's quite common in our native parks. The silver fern less common, but it's used as a symbol of New Zealand, like the kiwi.
And like the All Blacks.
Yeah, sure. Like the All Blacks. So yeah, I've got an All Black shirt on, and it's got the silver fern up on the top there. In New Zealand, Daniel's already introduced our national carrier. So you can see stylized ferns on the aircraft. This one's taking off from Auckland. In the past, we have decorated our airplanes based on themes from New Zealand. Lord of the Rings, obviously, and the Hobbit movies is a big part of New Zealand. There's actually a number of film crews in New Zealand right now doing filming. So even though we are not accepting any visitors, you can apply for exemptions. So there is, I think, three films being filmed in New Zealand right now. 747-400 obviously retired quite some time back, but yeah, quite an interesting paint job. Little ATR 72. They also operate Q400s as well. 787 with ATR arriving in the background into Auckland. And another Hobbit just taking off. So in New Zealand's fleet, this is a fleet as at 29th of February 2020. I know that they're retiring the 777-200s. So as per a lot of airlines, with the impact of COVID, they're looking to retire their older aircraft. One of the fun things about New Zealand is they often put out these safety videos that are themed. So they're not the standard welcome on board and safety themes. They actually, there's different themes there. So I think one of the top one there, the naked safety. So all the actors that were in that safety video, actually they looked like they had a New Zealand uniform on, but it was actually body paint. Then there's two different themed safety videos around the Hobbit. Bear Grylls is like an outdoor adventure guy, and so there's one with him. We've got a surf themed one, Betty White, like an old school safety in paradise. So that was done to coincide with the 50th anniversary of Sports Illustrated. Richard Simmons, so basically on-flight exercise. Men in Black, so that was a bunch of our All Blacks at the time taking on various roles in the safety video. Then there's also one there, Safety in Hollywood, which Rhys Darby, so he's a New Zealand comedian, did a safety video there. So maybe we can have a look at one of those later on. But as I said, I spent quite a bit of time surfing the net, looking at some of these things. And
no, that's interesting. And so maybe we watch 3 or 4 and then make a vote which is really the best one, maybe.
Sure.
You mean in the absence of having many passengers that can vote, you may as well ask people on the virtual happy hour.
That's right. That's right. So one of the things that I think in New Zealand's quite interesting for, New Zealand's a small country. There's not a lot of population. There's around 4.8 million people. So there's only so much, need for travel. And so Air New Zealand has in the past looked at having a low-cost airline, and that didn't really work so much. So what they've done is actually had the low-cost airline and the full-service airline on the same aircraft. So when you buy your ticket, you can choose whether you just pay for your seat and you just carry on bag only. Therefore, on board, you can only get water and tea coffee. You can buy seat plus a bag, so that allows you 23 kgs checked in baggage. And then the works, so that allows you the movie, in-flight entertainment screen, and food and drink. One of the things that I really like about that is that even if you haven't purchased that before you get on board, there's a card reader. So you can actually, if you've decided that you didn't want food or anything on board, but once you arrive, you're actually hungry, you can swipe your card, set up a tab, and then choose to watch a movie or buy something off board. So one of the sections there is the bar. So if you've purchased the works, once the team have come through and served you, you can actually go back there and go to the bar and request another drink. The other thing that they've developed, it's a number of years ago now, but this economy sky couch. So basically there's like a footrest that folds up and extends the seat so it can actually become a bed. So if you're traveling with toddlers or something like that, it can make it a lot easier. I was actually traveling once and a young lady was on board sitting next to me, and the flight attendant came down and said, oh, you're lucky, there's only 2 of you because they can only do the sky couch if there's only 2 adults. And I was like, okay. And I heard the 2 people in front laughing because it was the young lady's mother and father. And so then after takeoff, the flight attendant came back and said, okay, so now I can prepare your sky couch. And I was like, actually, we're not traveling together, so it's fine. But I think
they have even exported it to another airline using it. I think China Southern, China Eastern. I read something recently in the news.
It's a really good product. It's only in the first few rows of economy. And then they have different setup for your seatbelt so that when you're lying down, you can, still be safe.
Are you going to talk also about business class or not? Because that's for me. I was flying a lot of business class in my past while working for an airline IT subsidiary, to name it like this. Mm-hmm. And for me, the business class from Air New Zealand is the best in the world. I flew 2014. So maybe there is something better, but I liked very much this old butler style of treatment, and also the lighting and so on. It was really fantastic. Also the mattress they had there and so on. So it was really amazing. And unfortunately, Air New Zealand is not flying in Germany because then I would probably use them more often.
Well, Daniel, unfortunately, we're working for a company that no matter where Air New Zealand flies, it's out of reach. So
Yeah, but maybe I could then at least use the Sky Couch if I'm flying economy. So, but on the other hand, I think even in economy, you would have a good feel with Air New Zealand.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
New Zealand used to fly for years and years and years to Frankfurt, flying Frankfurt, Los Angeles, and then Los Angeles to Auckland.
Yeah, my big hope is that maybe
So-
from October this year on, they are going to fly to Berlin, to the brand new airport. What is there so funny?
Yeah, and pigs can fly.
Yeah, exactly. Pigs can fly.
no, you're right.
We're not talking about the 380 though, are we?
Not with Air New Zealand, no. Air
With
New
a
Zealand
flying
does have a
pig.
very good business product, but unfortunately I haven't travelled it nearly enough. I've normally been in other areas of the plane.
So Jeremy, you see we have another Kiwi now on the call, so we can always cross-check
Yes.
whether all the information conveyed are really true. So we have a fact checker now in the call.
Kia
Yeah,
ora,
it's always
Jeremy. Sorry, I was a bit late to the call.
It's always a pleasure to be audited.
Says the ops guy.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like there's the different products. Oh, the other product that they have is I think what do they call it? Works Deluxe. So you can get your seat. It's up the front of the airplane, and you can get guaranteed a empty seat next door to you, which is interesting in COVID. And a number of airlines are now offering that same sort of package as well. So what to do in New Zealand? It's a great place to visit. You sort of need to decide whether you want what sort of time you want to visit, what season and region. It's only a small country, but it still takes some time to get around. So normally somebody will look at targeting either one island, the North Island or the South Island, when they're coming on holiday. But there's lots of stuff to do. Most of it is focused around the great outdoors. So in the winter, snow skiing, snowboarding, glowworms. There's a lot of different geothermal activities. So, hot pools, and Rotorua has like bubbling mud pools. There's waterfalls, sea kayaking, paddleboarding, a lot of hiking and mountain biking and trail running. So, I don't like running, but I do like running through a forest, and so that makes it a lot more interesting to me. Allows me to think less about the heart attack that's about to happen, and just zone out in the beautiful scenery. You can go to 90 Mile Beach, although actually it's only 55 miles long, but that's up north. You can actually it's actually a road, so you can actually drive along this beach.
So does it mean that New Zealanders have a tendency to exaggerate if you say it's in fact only 55 miles, but it's called 90 mile?
Of course.
Oh, I see. Good.
Why would you let the truth get in the road of a good story? You can visit a marae, see kiwis, the nocturnal birds. So they only come out at night, so they have them in little viewing houses where they play with the day. So during the day it's their night, and during the night it's their day. Jet boating. So New Zealanders invented jet boating. Obviously wines, vineyards. Lake Taupo is quite a famous place. Just a big lake that was created from a volcano, basically. Hoka Falls is near Lake Taupo, so it's basically a river that sort of becomes a waterfall, and it's just absolutely pumping with water. So it's quite a small, narrow fall, but there's a lot of water going down there. There's the hire a camper van. So a lot of people come from Germany and hire a camper van and then get out amongst it. There's the world's steepest street, a residential street, and most years they'll have.
Are you sure these are Germans and not Dutch? I think the Dutch are always making the camping with the camper, isn't it?
No, it's both. There's a lot of Germans.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I put in a picture of a camper van here. One thing I will say, if you're looking at camper vanning, you'll see that the size of the width of the road is about the same width as the camper van. So that can be quite terrifying for people that are only used to driving a car. And you know, our roads are not like motorways in the US where you just go straight for miles and miles. You know, our roads have a lot of bends in them. You'll notice that the only separation from one side of the road to the other side of the road is the white dotted line. So we actually have quite a few problems with tourists coming from Europe and driving on the wrong side of the road. And as you can see in this shot, there is no other traffic often around. So sometimes they'll go into a petrol station or a stop for a while, and then they'll be driving for 5 or 6 kilometers on the wrong side of the road before they actually come across a car coming the other way, which causes chaos and sometimes doesn't end very well at all. Other things, canyoning or going through caves, kite surfing, land yachting. So that's basically a 3-wheeled, I don't know, like a sort of like a 3-wheel bike with a sail on it. Skydiving, parachuting, zorbing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Whitewater rafting. There's a lot of rivers that lead themselves to whitewater rafting and jet boating. River bugs. So that's like in a number of rivers you can hire like a tire in a tube, like a car tire in a tube, and go down, or you can get these other sort of things that you sit on or lie on to go down a river. The cable car in Wellington, Te Papa, is I guess our most famous museum in Wellington. Weta Workshops. So Weta Workshops are basically the production company behind all the Lord of the Rings movies. Brewery tours. There's a lot of boating opportunities. So boating in seas, boating in rivers.
Why are you glossing over brewery tours?
You can do that most places, right? But yeah, it's brewery tours, and also there's a lot of vineyards and wineries. So there's it's a good place to come and hang out, especially if you can find a designated driver. There's whale watching, swimming with the dolphins, glaciers that you can climb up and in. There's the Pancake Rocks and blowholes at Punakaiki. There's obviously cycling, road cycling or off-road and mountain biking. You go gold mining, you go rock climbing. So one of the things that it's known for is if you get out of the cities, just the lack of light pollution just allows you basically to wait until it's gone dark, and then just look up at the stars and just see the stars how they really should be seen. And bungee jumping.
Which we also invented.
Yeah, correct. So we have to talk about the All Blacks and the haka. So, when I travel around the world, first of all, people often ask me which part of Australia I'm from. And I have to reply that I'm, from South Australia. It's called New Zealand. So then the next thing that's normally talked about is either the All Blacks or the Black Caps. And if I was in America, US, people would say, oh, it's beautiful there. How far is it? And I say, well, it's, from LA to Auckland, it's 12 hours on an airplane. And they're like, oh, well, that's far too far. But it seems beautiful. But yeah, All Blacks is always one of the topics. And it always used to come into conversations, oh, do you know the haka? Can you do the haka for us? So, and I'm not going to do the haka, but don't worry about that.
That's a shame, actually. I was hoping to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably too early.
That would happen after the brewery tour.
Yeah,
we can have a look at the YouTube video.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'll send Daniel the presentation, and you can get the YouTube clips. Had to show a picture of Jonah. Actually, maybe in a couple of weeks' time we see Daniel giving us a haka. That would be interesting.
Let me check with my team.
Yeah, why not? Come on, Daniel. Let's do a haka. The IBS haka.
Yeah, sure. So some stats on the All Blacks. Basically, since October 2003, when World Rugby introduced a ranking system, All Blacks have held the #1 position for over 80% of the time. So they're quite well known in the rugby scene. Sorry.
And another piece of information for the Europeans: New Zealand holds the record for being the lowest ranked country ever to qualify for the Soccer World Cup, and the only team in 2010 to never lose a game. We didn't get past the pool stages, but we never lost a game.
Wow.
So rugby sevens is also, New Zealand's quite known for rugby sevens. Rugby sevens is basically, you play on the same field as the 15-a-side game, but there's only 7 of you, so that leaves a lot of space, and it's basically just sprinting up and down the field. And for that reason, it's only 7 minutes each way. So if you get the opportunity to go and see a rugby sevens tournament, Dubai, Hong Kong, New Zealand, it's actually a lot of fun to go and spectate and watch and potentially have a couple of beers while you're doing so, because it's often quite hot and you feel sorry for the players, so you need to cool down by drinking beer. Black Caps. So Black Caps is the name of our international cricket team, and we may not be that well known for our 5-day teams, but in limited overs we do pretty well. Normally in a 5-day match, what we do is we bat poorly for the first 2 days, and then for the rest of the 5 days we are praying for rain so that it's a washout and we get a draw. Lowlights in cricket, had to mention the underarm bowling incident against Australia. So this is where we were playing Australia in February 1981, and there was 1 ball to go and we needed 6 runs off the ball to win the match. And Greg Chappell, who was the captain, said to his little brother, Trevor Chappell, said, right, I need you to bowl this ball along the ground so that there is no chance that the batsman gets underneath the ball and gets a 6. So not against the rules, but not very nice either. Picture of the Black Caps. So we came second, unfortunately, at the recent World Cup. So that was pretty upsetting after all of it, and especially then, basically kind of losing against the rules. We have a bit of a theme with our sports teams, our international teams. So often, the names reflect obviously the black from All Blacks or whatever. So we've got All Whites, Silver Ferns, Black Ferns, Black Sox, Black Sticks, Tall Blacks, World Blacks. I don't know whether you've ever seen this game, but this is a crazy game. So it's boys and girls, but mainly boys, in wheelchairs playing rugby. So it's kind of full contact in a wheelchair. It's a lot of like paraplegics and people that have been injured through sports or whatever will play this game. It's crazy. It's amazing how they can manipulate their wheelchairs and also throw the ball around at the same time. Paddle Blacks is our canoe polo team. So canoe polo, probably most of you would not have heard, but it's basically like water polo, but it's in a very short kayak. It's a sport that I used to play socially. It's a lot of fun. Basically, you can paddle up and down the field, throw the ball sort of basketball style to each other, and then you have like a goal, which is like a water polo goal raised up above the field, the pitch, and so then you can
the horse.
Yeah, and then you can block the shots at goal with your paddle. So that's a lot of fun. And then the other thing is that you can push each other out if you get close to somebody and you're both trying to get the ball.
But there's no horse, so you don't have a horse.
No horse, no. Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. So the country's quite pretty. I recently went back for Christmas with my partner, and she hadn't been to New Zealand, so we stopped on just driving around, and she was taking photos, and we came back at the end of the day and talking to my mum, and she was saying, oh, this place is beautiful, it's so pretty, and she's like, my mum was like, wait, where did you go? She's like, oh, we went up to Hamner, and she's like, that's not a pretty drive. Like, no, but it's so pretty. So it's just people in that environment get spoiled, and they forget how pretty it is compared to, perhaps looking outside in India or some other countries. Piha's quite a famous surf beach. But most of the beaches in New Zealand are sort of dark sand or black sand. They're not white sand beaches. If you want to go to beaches, and you probably want to be in the North Island, and you probably want to be there in summer, otherwise it can be pretty cold. Coromandel Peninsula. We talked about glaciers before. Unfortunately, with the global warming, the glaciers are getting smaller and smaller. But it's really interesting to be able to get in and walk on a glacier and sometimes walk through some of the the caves that are created in the glaciers. No, neither of those are me. Waterfalls. There's some amazing waterfalls in New Zealand. So now when I am traveling in other countries and people say, "Oh, come on, let's go and see the waterfall," I normally get on Google and have a look at the waterfall, because I've been very disappointed going to waterfalls in other countries, just the size. And this waterfall is in Arthur's Pass, so that's that's in the South Island. I used to drive past this quite often, going from Christchurch, my hometown, through to the West Coast, where we used to do a lot of wakeboarding and water skiing. And I was traveling through this area once Christmas time, actually, and it was just raining so heavily that there wasn't just like one waterfall. These waterfalls were just everywhere. And in the end, it was raining so hard, I ended up just turning the stereo off in the truck because I just couldn't hear it. It was just so noisy on the truck. And basically, you've just got waterfalls everywhere, and the road was a river, and towing a boat's an interesting prospect. Especially through
Is that on the North Island or the South Island, Jeremy?
South Island. This is Arthur's Pass, just about 2 hours out of Christchurch.
Okay.
Bay of Islands up north, great spot to hang around, especially if you've got access to a boat. Very famous tree. It's in Lake Wanaka, so people that travel to New Zealand, this often ends up on Instagram. Unfortunately, some clown took a boat out there with a chainsaw and took off some of the lower branches, so it doesn't look quite so. I mean, it's not really a pretty tree anyway, but it's just that it's a tree in the middle of the lake. It's not in the middle of the lake, but a tree in a lake. It looks interesting. Milford Sound, so you can go on a boat trip in Milford Sound, some amazing experiences there. Waiheke, so Waiheke's out of Auckland, a great spot to go to visit some wineries. It's about a 25-minute ferry ride, I think, from Auckland across to Waiheke Island. A lot of people that work in Auckland actually live in Waiheke and go across on the ferry each day. It's also known for its sort of artistic people. So a lot of painters, writers live in Waiheke. It's a sort of much slower lifestyle. Sort of picturesque place to, concentrate on your art, I guess. Tongariro Crossing. So there's a lot of hills, mountains that have been volcanoes. So there's a lot of volcanoes. Some of them are extinct and some of them are not. So a couple of years ago, there was tourists visiting the White Islands volcano, and unfortunately it erupted at the time, and some people died from that. So a lot of New Zealand is produced, for example, Lake Taupo, the Littleton Harbour from my hometown, all produced from basically volcanic eruptions. Mount Taranaki. So we've got a picture looking at a window of an aeroplane here at Mount Taranaki. The reason why I put this in here is many years ago I was working for one of the New Zealand subsidiaries, and we're actually implementing some software. And while I was there, they were also implementing some flight tracking software. I can't remember whether it was like Flight Radar 24 but it was one of those type of softwares. So we were watching this aeroplane, and it was going from Wellington to Auckland, and then as it went on its way from Wellington to Auckland, it got up there, and then it did a circle, and then it carried on. We're like, oh, that's interesting. So when the pilot arrived, we called him and said, what was happening up the middle of the North Island there? And he's like, what do you mean? well, you know, that circle. He's like, how do you know? I said, oh, we've got some software. He's like, well, it was such a beautiful day and there was such a great shot of Mount Ruapehu that I decided we'd do a scenic around the mountain and carry on. So I'm like, hey, very good. Nice. I'm sure everyone loved it. Auckland Harbour, so America's Cup Village. So New Zealand's competed in the America's Cup for a number of times. We've been reasonably successful in it. Probably none of you actually know what this is all about, but it's basically some yachts racing against each other in what's called match racing. So if you look sort of the bottom left of the screen, this is two old America's Cup yachts. So you can actually, on any given day, go and basically book a seat, and they'll take these yachts out into the harbour and match race against each other. So I think it's a couple $100 to go, and you spend the afternoon out on the boat.
I remember 2006, I believe, there was a preparation race in northern Germany, and I didn't know that such a race is done in the public area. I was thinking they bar things and so on, because the two boats were racing against each other, and suddenly there was a huge ship, a tanker or something, and this one boat was using it, because I don't know all the rules, but I think you cannot overcome on the right or on the left. And suddenly they had this tanker in the middle. So it was fantastic from the strategy, because somebody was then explaining all this. And I remember I was in the Sofitel, and I think it was recently closed, this hotel, which is nearby the harbor, I believe.
Okay, sure. So this is the latest iteration of America's Cup boats. So this is Team New Zealand, sponsored by Emirates, obviously. And you'll see that these things actually, it's like a traditional yacht hull, but then once they get going, they get up on these hydrofoils. So the actual hull pulls out of the water, and they're just sitting on these basically 3 points on these hydrofoils. So they'll do like 40 miles an hour on these things. They absolutely fly.
Sailing anymore. It's all about technology, even there.
But Emirates is a great airline, because they are IBS customer and using iFlight Ops and iFlight Crew since many years. That was a commercial break for the moment. Over to you, Jeremy.
But it's not just high tech. I do the same 3-point technology when I'm going down the water slides. You take your speedos, hold them up. And then
I won't ask which is your third point that you're talking about.
Yeah, you use your elbows. Press
Exactly.
I know.
There you go.
That's an image that's going to traumatize me now.
Yeah.
We should maybe compete as Team Germany in the next American Cup.
Yeah, sure.
All we need is a sail that we can put up on our tummies.
It's when they were first getting used to this technology, because they haven't been using these foiling boats for all the time. You know, most of it was traditional yachts originally, but when they were first getting used to this foiling technology, what would happen is they'll be racing along at sort of 30, 40 knots, and then sometimes they would come off that, and basically the boat would just stop and almost upend, and there was people falling off, and people got damaged, but it was actually quite interesting and fun to watch. People that visit New Zealand, normally they know about Auckland. It's, our major city. 33% of the population comes from Auckland. There's about 1.6 million people in Auckland. But, the next probably next best well-known place in New Zealand is probably Queenstown. It's very much a tourism destination. It's known for its adventure activities, so there's skiing and snowboarding. There's about 3 or 4 ski fields around this area, including a whatever the skiing is that you just do on a flat surface. I can't even remember. Cross-country skiing. That's right.
Actually, the next America's Cup is in New Zealand, isn't it? 2021 in March.
Yes. And actually, I was just reading today that they're looking at, they might have to make some exemptions to allow teams and that to come in and compete.
Because at the moment it's only 4 teams or something like that.
So Queenstown, there's bungee jumping, zip lining, there's a giant swing, there's luge, there's jet boating, there's a lot of stuff that you can go and spend your money on. So when we allow you to come back to New Zealand, please do come in, and please spend lots, or need it by then. This is the luge track. Yeah, quite an interesting, basically go up on a chairlift and then come down on the luge. A lot of fun. You can also do this in Rotorua as well. When I was in OCC, my first airline, we had a team building activity. We went to Rotorua, and me and another guy were coming down on the luge, and neither of us wanted to give way for the corner. We both hit each other. We were both in shorts on this luge. One of my colleague canned out and just completely got a graze from the back of his knee right up his thigh and up his bum, and he couldn't sit down for like 2 weeks because he had this massive graze on his bottom.
Ugh.
But I'm not competitive. This is what basically a traditional house looks like in New Zealand. It helps if you're a bit shorter because some of the doors are a bit lower. There's some great driving roads in New Zealand, so this is a road I've driven a few times, and yeah, it's great. So, sometimes we just go for a drive, not necessarily going somewhere, but just to get out of the house, get out into the scenery, maybe go for a walk in a forest or whatever. I mentioned about the geothermal activity. So there's various hot pools around the country. Basically, this hot water is, heated from natural activity under the ground. A lot of Rotorua has a lot of geothermal activity under the ground, and in fact, they also harness that for energy as well. There's nothing better than sitting in a hot pool just soaking away. Hot water beach. So this is, you can go and you rent a spade for $10, and then you dig your own little hole, and it's like having your own little hot springs just from the hot water that comes up underneath. So this is, again, here's a picture of one person, but most days, the whole beach is just covered. People trying to get in there, get their Instagram shot. Meraki boulders. There's some interesting things on beaches, flat rocks, jagged rocks, round rocks, all sorts of different types of activities and scenery. This one here looks like somebody's just dropped the ball out of the plane or something, I guess. There's a lot of New Zealand is national parks, and it's protected, so it's basically kept in forest, and there's a lot of tracks that are created through these areas, so you can go hiking and walking through these areas. Some of them have these mountain huts, so you can, basically make a trip, give it a night stop in one of these mountain huts. So you take your backpack and you take your bottle of wine and some, freeze-dried fruit or whatever you want to eat, and go and spend the night in the hut. This is our fencing to keep the sheep in, so it's good. It's actually a famous fence just out of Queenstown. So at some stage somebody tied their bra on the fence, and everybody thought it was a good idea, and now it's kind of like a tourist attraction. I'm not sure whether it was sponsored by bra manufacturers or what the story is.
Does it mean that the women are bringing an extra bra, or they are leaving their bra and then getting home without bra, or what is the system behind?
Whichever one you want to think about.
Actually, I'm just thinking, we have this common thing where they put locks. Lovers put locks on bridges.
Yeah, very
I think bras would be more appealing.
Yeah, and Daniel, you're being very sexist. Why is it just the women leaving their bras behind?
That's correct. I was always wondering why Marco is wearing a bra, but you're right. So you're correct. Yeah.
How you know? Because
it gives them support and comfort.
Yeah.
Well, but men could leave their suspensorium behind.
That's right. So one of the first meals that I get when I go home is fish and chips. You can get fish and chips other places, but I really like the fish and chips from back home, especially if you're like in a little seaside town where you can get the fish, basically direct from the fishing boat.
But that's what you inherited from the English, didn't you? Fish and chips.
Yeah, but without the mushy peas.
Okay.
And we have cold beer.
And do you also use malt vinegar for the chips?
Some people do, but it's not the same amount, not the same prevalence as in Europe,
Okay.
UK. Yeah. But yeah, I do like vinegar on chips, but it's not common. Most people wouldn't. Meat pies. So there's actually a police did a video many years ago, and they were talking about being safe, and whatever you do when you get the pie, please blow on the pie, because sometimes you bite into these and you just burn your mouth. Lolly cake. So I just had to put this in. It reminded me so much of my childhood. So at a child's birthday party or whatever, you would have this cake. It's kind of like a fudge surrounded by sweets, I guess. So you have these. It's kind of like a hard marshmallow that you chop up and put it into the cake. I also had to put it there because years ago I was in Saudi Arabia and we were sitting around a pool and talking to people from Australia, New Zealand, UK, Ireland, various different places, and I was talking about lollies, and they said, "What are you talking about?" And lollies is what we use for sweets or confectionery, so it's just a different word. Yes, wineries. New Zealand
fantastic Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah. That's
yeah.
one of the favorite white wines I know, and I have exactly a New Zealand one from Marlborough, I think is the winery.
Marlborough is the region. I don't think it'll be the winery, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep. No, relax. So this is a beehive. This is where our parliament sits, called the beehive basically because of the what it looks like. It looks like a beehive. This is our boss lady, Jacinda. So she's been praised a lot for her handling of the COVID crisis, and also the mass shooting in the Christchurch Mosque a couple of years ago.
How old is she now?
She's 40.
Okay.
40.
No, she wasn't not the youngest, but nearly.
Yeah, no, and she rocked up. She was breastfeeding her baby in Parliament and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been good to see. Her husband is basically a house husband who looks after their daughter, but he also has like an outdoor and fishing show that he narrates and commentates. I like this, world famous in New Zealand. We use that quite a bit. There's some stuff that we talk about, we know about, but you can't find it anywhere else. So this is LMP. It's kind of like a cross between, I guess, something like Mellow Yellow, a lemon soda, and I guess lemon, lime, and bitters. So I actually quite like it.
Well, what is Pareo? I never heard of that. What is that ingredient?
So actually Pyroa is the area. So Pyroa is the city, and it's supposed to be some, very amazing clean water. So it's like spring water. So it's this lemon and Pyroa, yeah.
So it's like a 7-Up or a Sprite.
Yeah, it's like that, but a bit more bitter, yeah.
Okay.
So, in New Zealand, we're a long way away from anywhere, and before television and Netflix, we had quite a lot of time to think about things. So, and also, the sunrise is first in New Zealand, so got a lot more time to get some of the stuff done. So, there was some famous New Zealanders. I'm not saying this is a complete and full list. I'm not saying this is my take, and many others would have a completely different take. AJ Hackett, the bungee jumping, Bill Hamilton, jet boating. So jet boating was basically a pump propulsion unit from a boat, and basically was the forefather of the jet ski, really. We like to go for walks, so Siribman Hillary, he climbed a hill. Peter Jackson, filmmaker, Lord, songwriter that you may have heard. Flight of the Conchords, if you haven't seen them, Google them. They had an HBO show for a while. They're quite funny.
And Jeremy, I have to add one more because it's aviation. Richard Pearce, who flew before the Wright brothers.
Actually, he was on my list, but I don't know how he missed out. So yes, for sure.
How could you do that? So for the Germans here, he claimed to have flown before the Wright brothers did, and we believe him.
Sir Edmund Hillary, he climbed the Mount Everest.
Yes. So this is, if you see on the right-hand side, so, Bill Hamilton, he actually invented a bunch of different stuff, but one of the things was this jet propulsion unit. So we have a lot of these rivers in New Zealand. They're called braided rivers. And so what that means is that the river, when it rains, might take a different path. So the water pressure might carve out a different path, and it's through the shingle. So it's often quite shallow. So with these jet propulsion units, basically, once you get the boat up on the plane, it only needs a few inches of water to keep going. So quite revolutionary and a lot of fun. And I remember when I was back in Teachers College that we had an exchange, like a college master, I guess you'd call him. And he said, it's great. He came from the US, and he said, this is amazing. He said, I went down to Queenstown and I was riding on this boat, and, we're shooting along, and we went really, really close to the edge. And he said, if you put out your arm, you'd break your arm. He said, you can't do that in the US because you get sued. He's like, it's great. You can come to New Zealand, you can kill yourself. Okay, that's a good takeaway.
Good place to die.
Yeah, for sure. Zorbing was apparently invented in New Zealand. So basically, you might see these overseas. Sometimes you see them on water, and people get in them and walk along. It's like a big mouse wheel. In New Zealand, we put them on a sort of a slow rolling hill. So you get in the top and use the gravity to come down. And then in the summer, they fill them up with water because it gets very hot in there. So that's why you see this guy soaked. Bungee jumping, of course, a good way to leave a perfectly good bridge. Some translations here, so we do talk slightly differently. People, when I talk about chili bin, they have no idea what I'm talking about, but this is a cooler or an esky. Esky is a brand. Then something to keep your beers cold in, basically. Togs is our name for swimsuit. Stubbies is probably one that you wouldn't have heard of. So Stubby is the short bottle of beer, known because it's quite short and stubby. And then there was a brand in New Zealand and Australia had these very back in the 70s, I guess, and they were very, very short shorts, and they were called Stubbies. So now if you're wearing short shorts, you've got your Stubbies on. All good, sweet as, choice as. Munted is a particular favourite of mine. It's a very good way of describing somebody that's had way, way, way too much to drink. Taking the piss.
And I used the term legless on Marco a couple of days ago, and he didn't understand that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Taking the piss is a good one for, like if somebody's hassling you or being unrealistic, you're taking the piss. Or maybe they're joking. She'll be right. Too meke is too much. That's comes from Māori. Yeah, lots of others. And of course, we have some animals. So you can go whale watching, go swimming with the dolphins. This is in Akaroa Harbour, so I've been there and did that. I was there with my family and my son and daughter, and I said to them, right, the dolphins in Akaroa are actually quite small. They're bottlenose dolphins. So I said, come on, let's jump over the side. The people are paying a lot of money to swim with these dolphins. Let's jump over the side and swim with the dolphins. So they thought that was a good idea, except my son sort of then looked at the dolphin and realized the size that he was and the size that the dolphin was, and decided that he needed to get out of the water very quickly. So he basically walked on water back to the boat, and that was the last he wanted to do. And I went back in Christmas, and I was saying to him, hey, should we go swim with the dolphins? He's like, hell no. But they are so cute. If you riding in the boat, and they actually play off the bow waves of the boat. So they're, very cute. Oh, yeah, we've got some sheep as well. And
how many in total roundabout? Is there an estimate?
Yeah, there is. I suggest you go and see Google. But one of the things that I always tell my friends that come to New Zealand, and invariably the conversations come up about sheep, and I say, well, do you know how you count how many sheep are in a paddock? And they're like, no. I said, well, you count the number of legs, and then you divide by 4. Okay, so that's basically the presentation and basically the time. I can show one of those safety videos if you wish.
Yes, please.
Please.
Pressure, which one should I use?
And please send me also the slides that we can upload it. Good.
Sure. Can you see this page?
No, we still see the PowerPoint.
Sure.
I think it doesn't work that easy with Teams.
I think if you want to share something, you need to share the entire screen, so not just the application. And then you see, say, if you're using YouTube now, then you see the browser. Yeah.
There now?
Yeah.
Are possums still oh, sorry. Okay.
There was never such a silent virtual happy hour.
You spoiled it.
Okay, so I can stop sharing. Is there any questions or comments?
No, thank you very much, Jeremy. I think that was really amazing. And now you know why I was saying one of my favorite countries and also one of my favorite airlines in the world.
Definitely, I agree. Some of the nicest people come from there too.
I totally agree.
Without question.
So, are there any questions from the audience? Sri Lakshmi, you have any question to Jeremy? Marco, any question?
I'm on mute. I unfortunately have to drop off because I have another call that I scheduled. I have plenty of questions like, is Steinlager still the world's best beer? I would like to know whether you can still take your car on 90 Mile Beach and do crazy things. Is there still the place in the Bay of Islands where you can get a burger with a fried egg, beetroot, and thick patty like that? I've got so many beautiful memories of New Zealand when I traveled there. Actually, I took my wife on our honeymoon. We had a 36-hour stopover in New Zealand, which is a bit crazy. It was on the way. We had to change planes anyways. So I have a lot of fond and great memories of the country, and I would absolutely love to go back because I only saw, when I visited in 1991 or 92, I only saw the Northern Island, and everybody told me like, what a complete waste of time because the Southern Island is so much more spectacular. And I was already blown away by the North Island, by the nature, the food, the people, the sheep, everything.
You like the sheep. That's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, but then in the end, I married my wife.
So that leads us with a great sheep joke, which is, how does Marco find sheep in long grass? The answer is delightful.
No, I have no more questions, but it has just reinvigorated my desire to go traveling again. So thanks for that, Jeremy.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.
For the wonderful virtual tour to New Zealand.
I'd love to see you again on one of these virtual happy hours, Jeremy. I need to drop.
Yeah, sure.
Take care.
So thank you very much. Take care and stay healthy and safe. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.